Hello and welcome. You're watching the News Unlocked, the show that goes beyond the headlines to bring you the real issues that matter. Today we are taking up an issue that's been lost perhaps in the noise of news, because we now have a situation where poets, professors, students, activists are all in jail under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and are being denied any bail. This at a time when many jails are seen to become COVID-prone centers. Many of these people are in their late 60s and 70s. Others are students. And yet all of them are being denied bail, as powerful state governments and the police say that they cannot be given bail at all. That comes to the question then of sedition. It comes to questions of individual freedoms and rights. There are those who feel that dissent is a cornerstone of democratic traditions, that you cannot arrest someone simply because of their ideological leanings. But as this week has shown, more and more such activists are now being arrested and picked up by the National Intelligence Agency. Let's begin with Tuesday, when the NIA arrested a 12th person in the contentious Elgar Parishad Bhima Koregaon violence case. The person was an associate professor at Delhi University, Hani Babu. He's been taken into custody and he, like many others, could well be denied bail. Let's therefore take a look at the battle that's taking place between the police and the state on one side and activists on the other. This is our top focus today. Jail or bail? Take a look.
A 54-year-old associate professor of English at Delhi University, Hani Babu, was arrested on 28th of July by the National Investigation Agency in Mumbai. He has been arrested for his alleged involvement in the Elgar Parishad Bhima Koregaon violence case. On 29th of July, Babu was produced before a special NIA court in Mumbai and sent to NIA custody till 4th of August.
In court, the National Investigation Agency submitted that the Delhi University professor had links with an organization banned under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the Communist Party of India Maoist, and he was propagating Naxal activities and Maoist ideology. He was allegedly a co-conspirator with the other arrested accused in the Elgar Parishad case. The agency also said that the letters recovered from Hani Babu's seized electronic articles point towards his involvement in the case.
When the NIA took up investigation of the case in January, it registered an FIR and charged 11 people, including 9 who were already in jail under provisions of the anti-terror law UAPA. And following Anand Teltumbe and Gautam Navlakha's arrest in April 2020, they have now made their third arrest with Hani Babu. In 2018, the Pune police arrested academics, activists and lawyers and charged them with IPC Section 124 or sedition. A new term also came into use when those arrested got tagged as urban Naxals. In November 2018, the Pune police had arrested poet and human rights activist Varavara Rao for his alleged links with Maoists and his role in the Bhima Koregaon violence case. The 80-year-old has been in custody ever since. On July 16th, Varavara Rao tested positive for coronavirus.
We went to Mumbai to meet him. On 15th, we met him. We saw him in JJ Hospital. His condition in JJ Hospital was very, very pathetic. It was 3 days by then. 13th he was joined and 15th we went there. We did not see any treatment, any apparatus, any instruments, not even a saline drip or urine catheter or any such kind of things. He was just lying on the bed without any medical care.
However, Rao is not the only activist with comorbidity and under arrest during these COVID times. Another activist, Professor Sudha Bhardwaj, who was booked under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, sought interim bail on medical grounds, but continues to be in prison as the NIA has opposed her bail plea.
She's been not very well nowadays because of her diabetes and arthritis. And got to know that she has diagnosed with ischemic heart disease. So
ischemia heart disease, right?
Ischemic heart disease,
Right.
While investigating the case, several searches were conducted. Offices and residences of Dalit activists were raided by Pune Police. Pune Police claimed to have recovered data, emails, literature and documents which linked them to the banned outfit CPI Maoist. Also, further emails linked some other activists, some renowned activists like Sudha Bhardwaj, Vernon Gonsalves, Varvara Rao, Gautam Naulakha, Anand Teltumde and others who were later arrested by the Pune Police. Now these activists, many of them have been dubbed urban Naxals and as I said have been consistently denied bail. This, although the NIA has failed in recent months to build a strong case against them. The fact though is it's not just the Elgar Parishad case in Maharashtra where rights activists are being taken to task and being denied bail. On Wednesday, an activist in Manipur was slapped a charge of sedition for having posted a photo on Facebook. The past few months have seen a huge rise in the number of students and rights activists who are being taken into custody. Mostly, many of them are connected to the anti-CAA protests that took place in the early part of the year and the February riots in Delhi. Most of them have been booked, as I said, under the UAPA, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which makes it extremely difficult to get bail. Take a look at this report.
Manipuri political activist Erendro Laichombam on Wednesday was charged with sedition after he shared a post on Facebook that had the photo of the newly elected Rajya Sabha MP Sanajoba Leshamba with Union Home Minister Amit Shah. The photo shows the MP, who is also considered the titular king of Manipur, bowing to the Home Minister. The photo was shared on July 24th with the caption Minai Macha, which roughly means son of a servant in Meitei language. In May 2020, a student of the Aligarh Muslim University, Farhan Zuberi, was arrested and booked for sedition and attempt to murder in connection with Anti-Citizenship Amendment Act protests which took place in the university in December 2019. In February 2020, a teenage student activist had been arrested and booked for sedition in Bengaluru. This after she had raised Pakistan Zindabad slogans at an anti-CAA NRC protest. These are but a few recent instances when the colonial era sedition law has been used by the state to come down against its critics and verbal opponents of prevalent policies. Oftentimes, these activists charged, if not under sedition, then the stringent UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, have languished in jails for long periods before courts have granted them relief in some instances. For example, on June 23rd, the Delhi High Court granted bail to Safura Zargar, a student of Jamia Millia Islamia, on humanitarian grounds. Zargar was 5 months pregnant at the time and had served 2 months in prison after being arrested by Special Cell of Delhi Police in connection with the Northeast Delhi violence.
I think that was the government's decision was a correct decision. And see, it's our case that there was no case at all against her. One, it's our case that she should never have been arrested, much less detained, even on, on the case they have set up against her, even aside from her pregnancy.
But Safura Zargar was only one of the student activists taken into custody. Other anti-CAA activists and students arrested and booked under the draconian UAPA include Devangana Kalita, Natasha Narwal, Gulfisha Fatima, among others. All of them have been denied bail.
According to one of the charge sheets filed by the Delhi police into the Northeast Delhi riots, a secret meeting had been held on 23rd February in the night between activists from various organizations, including United Against Hate, Pinjra Tod, PFI, etc. There, according to the police, a conspiracy was hatched and people were asked to prepare for violence.
In January, Sharjil Imam, a PhD student at the JNU Center for Historical Studies, was arrested by Delhi Police's crime branch from Bihar's Jehanabad. In his case, a sedition charge was slapped against him for allegedly making inflammatory speeches in Jamia Millia Islamia and Aligarh. The Delhi High Court has declined to grant bail to Imam, noting that there are good and justifiable grounds to give probe agencies more time to wrap up its investigations. Meanwhile, there is a growing chorus against imprisonment of students and activists. Civil society members have strongly condemned the arrest of students and activists and the slapping of anti-terror or sedition charges against those who raise their voices to protest.
So what really is the truth of this battle that's going on between the state police in different states, police on one side and activists on the other? I'm joined by P.K. Jain, former Mumbai Police Commissioner and senior officer of the Mumbai Police, joining me, and Colin Gonsalves, senior advocate who's been appearing for many of these activists. I want to understand from you, Colin Gonsalves, first. The fact is that many of these activists have applied for bail at various times, Sudha Bhardwaj, Varvar Rao, and the state has been refusing it, claiming that the charges against them are serious and they are arrested in many instances under UAPA where bail is difficult. Therefore, they cannot get any special benefits simply because we live in COVID times. How do you respond?
Well, the real issue is not really whether the charges are serious, because all these charges are serious. The real issue is whether the prosecution has any legally admissible evidence by which they can tell the court, don't grant bail to this person because this is the evidence that I have, and this evidence is legally admissible evidence. Now, what has happened is the Supreme Court has made a huge mistake in a particular case called the Watali case. And in the Watali case, the Supreme Court said, and I must tell you, this is a terrible mistake against all the earlier judgments of Supreme Court, that even at the stage of bail, even if the prosecution has no legally admissible evidence, but has evidence which can be thrown out in the trial, it will not be considered in the trial, like hearsay evidence. Somebody said something about something. If that evidence will be thrown out at the trial, nevertheless, it can be used by the prosecution at the time of bail to say, yes, this is not legally admissible evidence, but the court will consider it to deny bail. Can you imagine a judgment like this in the history of India has never been made? Now the prosecution, the police are using this everywhere, producing all kinds of fairy tale evidence, letters unsigned, letters unconnected with me, somebody saying I'm such a terrible, terrible terrorist, using all these kinds of fairy tale stories to get denial of bail. And why? Because the prosecution knows, the police knows, that if the trial were to start today, all these persons in jail would be acquitted because there's no evidence against them. The purpose is not to get a conviction. Conviction rates are very low. The purpose is to keep them, by denying them bail, in jail for 5 or 6 years. That's their limited purpose. We know he's innocent. We know we have no evidence. But let's keep that person in jail for 6 years without the trial starting. That's the purpose.
Let me take that to P.K. Jain, and specifically if you look at what the Maharashtra police has done in the Bhima Koregaon case. The fact is the trial hasn't started. You've got Sudha Bhardwaj, who was an academic. Allegedly, the Maharashtra police says they have incriminating evidence against her. But as Colin Gonsalves is suggesting, if you have the evidence, then go to the trial case, build your charge sheet there and start the trial. You don't want to do that. The fact is the police using UAPA to deny bail, basically? You don't want them to get bail at all, at any cost. That's the new approach of the police, which is completely contrary to what jurisprudence was, that you would give bail rather than put people in jail.
See, these are all very serious cases, Rajdeep. I would like to specify here that the matter has been put to test in various courts, right up to the FX court. There is a prima facie case. That is why the bail is not being granted. The similar things were said when Sai Baba's case was being heard or he was prosecuted. They said he's physically handicapped, he's physically challenged and all that. How can he do things like that? Yet the man was convicted, and today he's facing his sentence in the prison. Now all these people, Pune police had adequate evidence on them. Sudha Bhardwaj or Barbara Rao will not write letters saying that signed by them, saying that okay, to their cadres to go and commit a particular act of violence against the security forces or against the nation. There has been adequate evidence found on their computers, which has matched with the incidents which subsequently or in the past took place.
Mr. Jain, then why not push for this to and push for a trial? If you believe, if the police of any state, not just Maharashtra, believes that the evidence is so strong, then rather than keep procrastinating, not coming, the NIA has handled this case now for the last 6 months from the Pune police. They've not come up with a shred of new evidence.
Okay, let me tell you one thing. See, Elgar Parishad was organized by 260 organizations by their own admission.
Yes.
By 260 organizations. There are 40 organizations working over ground in support of the CPIM.
Sir, including former Supreme Court judges. The Elgar Parishad included former Supreme Court judges who came and attended that function.
There were two retired High Court judges.
One High Court, one Supreme Court. One High Court, one Supreme Court.
Now, these judges said, but all that evidence was considered. They probably wanted to protect certain individuals. What I'm saying is that Pune police has been in their searches able to recover evidence which they have taken to the courts and which they have been successfully able to prove that these people were involved in the urban Naxalism. See, I'll tell you the charter of Naxalism. They operate on all levels. They operate in the agrarian sector. They operate in the labor sector. They operate in the trade unions. They operate among students. They operate in the urban scenario. Now, if police has been able to basically prove that there is a case and the Supreme Court has come to a conclusion that these people should not be granted bail, what is wrong in that?
No, why don't you go to trial? Why don't you take these cases, sir? I take your point, Mr. Jain, but why not take these cases to trial, whether it's a sedition case? You see, look at the allegation that are made now. The allegations involve sedition using what is a colonial act of 124A against those perhaps who have a dissenting opinion. Then you have the UAPA being used on the grounds that they were part of a conspiracy. But if it is a conspiracy, go ahead. 2 years they've been in jail. Go to trial, prove your case, convict them.
Conspiracy is not that easy to prove.
That's the problem.
Investigation has to be. So that's why. Now listen to me.
Yes.
Investigation has to be carried out thoroughly to prove the angle of conspiracy or whatever evidence they have. Once the investigation is completed, the charge sheet will be filed. It is not that the case will be kept absolutely open for years to come. In charge sheet has to be filed. It will be filed in due course of time when the investigation is complete. When the IO comes to a conclusion that he has wrapped up all the loose ends. See, it is not that only these 12-13 people were involved in the conspiracy. Right. So now the latest arrest of Mr. Hani Babu is only a few days ago. Now that means that after so much of investigation, they've come to the conclusion that this man is also involved. Though his house was searched long ago. His house was searched about 6 months ago. So now there could be other people also. So let the conspiracy angle be fully established.
Right.
Let all the loose ends and loose threads be tied up, and then only the charge sheet can be filed.
So people remain. So till that period, people remain in jail for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
No, Rajdeep, charge sheets have been filed. The investigation is over.
Release them on bail or otherwise.
Okay,
these people have been making efforts.
Okay, you made your point.
It is for the court to take a view whether they should be bailed out, that they should not be bailed out.
Okay, that's the point, Colin Gonsalves. You've gone to different courts in Pune, in the High Court and the Supreme Court in the Elgar Parishad case. Now we've got the Delhi riots case, where again a lot of student activists have been charged under UAPA. Many of them are not being given bail. The question arises, at the end of the day, can you question the judgment of the courts in the manner in which they also now choose not to give bail in such cases?
Yes, I can, and I'll tell you why. First is, let me say one thing. The gentleman was saying, let the charge sheet be filed. Now, in all these cases, the charge sheet has been filed. Investigation is over. The question you asked was,
one by one, sir.
Once the charge sheet is filed, why don't you begin the trial immediately and conclude the trial and get the decision? Charge sheet is filed. After the charge sheet is filed, years pass before the trial actually begins. That's one. Now, second, you're right when you say that the judges are rejecting. They must reject. Because there's a recent judgment, I think it's a year back or a year and a half back, of the Supreme Court in Watali's case, which changed the rules of the game. The rules of the game till today, the Supreme Court in umpteen judgments said, if you want to deny bail, police, show me the evidence that is legally admissible during the trial. If it's not legally admissible during the trial, don't show me that, argue your bail application. Now the Supreme Court said, and it's a tragedy, this judgment of the Supreme Court in Watali's case, that even if that evidence is not legally admissible during the trial, if it is used during the trial, the man will be acquitted.
Okay,
But I will lose it.
It is unfortunate that we first question the investigating agency, then we start questioning the court, then we start questioning their judgments. I mean, it is a...
Tell me though, let me ask you a direct question though, PK Jain. Is there a sense, a mindset today within the police that all of these people are essentially so-called urban Naxals, and therefore they are people who, you know, this term urban Naxals which is there. I mean, what does it mean? What does it mean to a police officer? I would like to know today.
See, we have cadres which are operating in the jungles. These are the cadres which are fighting the security forces, killing them, subjugating a particular area, not allowing the people, not allowing the works of development, not allowing the governments to reach there. So these are the cadres which are fighting in the jungles. There are other cadres who are supporting them, both in terms of ideology, in terms of garnering support for them, in terms of even procuring weapons and medicine supplies and everything for them, in terms of procuring money for them, in terms of procuring support from the community. In the case of Elgar Parishad, let me tell you that for 1 year, this exercise went on. There are 26, there were groups which went on all over 2 states and they garnered support. These people who collected 5 lakh people at Bhima Koregaon was not in a day. Every year only 25-30,000 people used to come. These 5 lakh people who assembled there was the result of some groups going around all over the state to garner support for this particular cause.
No, so if they assemble together and question the state, do they become criminals who need to be thrown into jail? No, today if I make a speech against the government, should I be thrown into jail?
They caused violence there, and this violence was pre-planned. That is what Pune City Police has been able to prove.
So therefore they become terrorists. They become terrorists to be tried under UAPA.
The UAPA is a term. You know what is the philosophy of the CPIM? It is power through the barrel of a gun. So these urban terrorists may not be holding an actual gun, but they are the people who are supporting this cause, which is happening in jungles and in other areas.
Let me add just 30 seconds before I tell our viewers how sedition actually plays out. A quick response to that, Colin Gonsalves. These are urban Naxals according to the police. A quick response.
Basically, they are punishing them for speaking out against the state. Their only weapon is not a gun, not a bomb, not an AK-47, not a knife. Their only weapon is their tongue. That they don't like this kind of capitalism in India. They want a socialist revolution in this country, but they are neither firing a gun nor are they throwing a bomb. It doesn't attract sedition charges at all. And there are 2 judgments of the Supreme Court in Balwant Singh's case. You may use fiery language, but you do nothing after that. There's the case from Kashmir, Azadi.
Let me leave it there because I have a story which I want to explain to our viewers how sedition works. But Colin Gonsalves, Mr. Jain, I appreciate your joining us. This is a polarized debate, but one where clearly civil liberties in some way or the other are at stake of people who perhaps deserve bail, not jail. But that's a debate that will be carried forward. What is sedition? What does the law say about sedition? Why have we put this on prime time? Because more and more people are being charged in this country under sedition. Take a look at this report that looks at how a colonial era law is being used in 21st century India.
Democracies like India guarantee expansive liberties to its citizens, including that of expression, of dissent and disagreements.
Because you say something as a dissentient. You know, if you do it dissent for dissent, it is meaningless. But if you have genuinely something to say, you should be. In fact, that is the best way to become a stronger country.
Any criticism of government, any pungent condemnation of government policy is not sedition.
Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code states, whoever, by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representation, or otherwise, brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt, or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by law, shall be punished with imprisonment for life, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine. A rule introduced by the British government in 1870 continues to exist in 2020 India. Drafted by Thomas Macaulay to thwart rebellion, revolution and dissent against colonial rule, the sedition law was mainly used against political leaders seeking independence of India from Britain.
There needs to be a serious rethink at this colonial law brought in by the British to control their colonial slaves, us, and therefore it needs a serious rethink.
We always intended to change it, but it is a useful law for administrators and no government has got round to actually abolishing it.
In recent years, Indian citizens have been charged with sedition for liking a Facebook post, cheering a rival cricket team, for appreciating the people of Pakistan, drawing cartoons, or denouncing a yoga guru, or not standing up in a cinema theatre when the national anthem is being played. Not just these, Section 124A has also been used to curb dissent against the government in power. Data from the National Crime Records Bureau shows the number of sedition cases have been on a rise. 2016 saw 34, 2017 saw 58, while in 2018 there were 90 cases on trial.
Everybody represents the sovereign, every citizen represents, because sovereignty is a combined right of the citizenry, and therefore sedition has no place in a democratic constitutional republic as in India.
Now that the ruler's rule is long over and a sovereign democracy has existed over 72 years, can public disaffection against a people-powered government still be called seditious?
Sedition, urban Naxals, terms are thrown at people. Just to leave you with one thought, Mahatma Gandhi was charged with sedition under Section 124A for bringing or attempting to excite disaffection towards His Majesty's government established by law in British India. We are, my friends, in 2020, not in a colonial era. Think about it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. The news unlocked. News without the noise. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.